Welcome knitters, I'm Jana with Purl Together. This is part one of our Brioche Basics Scarf Knit-Along. So if you haven't already done your practice back and forth engage and swatch, do that. I'll put a link to a video tutorial for that down below. It was the most recent upload before this one. So where I show you how to become more comfortable knitting back and forth with brioche, and also you might want to check your gauge. I mean, I know it's a scarf and gauge is not super critical, but you do want to create the fabric that works well for brioche, that is kind of lofty and it's airy, but it's not too loose, but it's not too tight. So you want to experiment around a little bit with different needles and yarn and see what works best for you. So in this video though, we're going to do a provisional cast on, we're going to do an I-cord, and then carry on learning brioche in two colors back and forth. This pattern also includes increases and decreases, so that'll be a lot to learn. So in this first portion though, I'm just going to get you started with the provisional cast on, the I-cord, picking up down, making the I-cord edge, and then we'll do the first few rows of two color brioche, having a reminder of how to read your knitting and how to knit back and forth with all of those rows and all of that going on. So that'll be part one. Before we get started, I want to give a big public shout out and express my gratitude for my three newest patrons, Ruby, Mandy, and Linda. Thanks so much for supporting the channel. If you want to know how you can support Purl Together and help keep these videos coming each and every week, go check out what I'm offering for patron rewards over at patreon.com/Purl Together. All right, let's get started. So the first thing I'm going to do is I have a little bit of waste yarn here. You can use whatever you have on hand. I'm just using a little bit of sock yarn that I had, which is, smaller than my working yarn, but that's all right. And I'm using the larger size. In my case, I've chosen US 5 or 3.75 millimeter. And actually, I don't want to put that on there. Let's just have it. What I want to do is put it on my crochet hook. So I'm using a crochet hook, and I'm going to provisionally cast on a few stitches onto this needle. Now, provisional cast on, all that means is that you're going to put some stitches on the needle and they're going to remain live so that you can pick them up later and they'll look like totally seamless and live. So I just cinched that up a little bit, and I want my waist yarn to go around behind. Then I'm just going to go around and hook that and bring it through. So you don't want your slip knot too tight because you want to be able to do that over and over. So I'm going to lift that up and behind, and then go ahead and grab a hold of that and bring that through again. So that's 2. And I'm only going to need 3. So that's it. That's all we need to do. Now what I am going to do though is hang on to these 3 stitches on my needle, and I'm just going to go ahead and do a couple more chain edges for my tail. And then I can leave that hanging for later. And I'm not going to pull this through because when I do that, I always forget how I had it. So I'm just going to leave that hanging there so that when I'm ready to unzip it, I can just pull that and it'll go bloop and unzip. So I have my 3 stitches here on the needle that I'm going to knit into. I'm going to knit right into that with color A. Now for me, I've chosen my main color or color A to be this Misty Mountain color, I believe Brown Sheep calls it. And it's this kind of teal turquoise. I never know, is it teal, is it turquoise? I never know what it's called. Anyway, I've left myself a decent tail here off holding it. I'm just holding it down here, and I'm just knitting those first 3 right in there, and it feels loose and weird. It'll all work out, trust me. Now what I'm going to do to continue my I-cord is just slip this back over to the left needle. So tip to tip, being mindful not to twist anything, just slip all of that right back over to the left side. And I know that that first stitch is a little bit loose and wonky. Just get it on there, and if you want to give it a gentle, if you kind of want to tighten this up a little bit, then go ahead and do that. I prefer to have it a little bit more snug, and then I'm just going to hold this back here because I don't like things too loose and sloppy personally. Then I'm going to just knit those same 3 again. And I'm still kind of hanging on to this tail back here because that's just my preference. It will all work out. So I'm going to knit those same 3 stitches again. And you want to have, you're going to do this a total of 35 times. So you're going to have 35 rows of this I-cord by the time all is said and done. This is going to make a really tidy edge to the bottom of our scarf. So again, I slip those back to the left side, and it's going to create a little tube. You know what this reminds me of is the strings on your hoodie. If you look closely, those are kind of like a little mini I-cord. I just now realized that. I kind of never thought of that before. Anyway, so I'm slipping those back over and knitting them again. So carry on doing this a total of 35 times. Now see, I've split that stitch there with my slipping, so I'm just going to take care of that real quick and go to the next one. One thing you might keep in mind to keep it easier, to make things easier when you're shuffling things back and forth, is if your stitches are a little bit loose, you can just go in underneath with the left needle and swoop them all over at the same time. So that will make things a little bit quicker, and if you're careful, you won't split stitches either. All right, so I've done that 35 times, and when I count that, it might seem a little bit tedious, but you're going to want to double count your I-cord cast on, and you just want to count the V's. So if you make sure that you're counting this is a V right here, and you could actually, as you go, if you wanted to put in some of those blunt plastic markers, you could, like every 10, but that's a stitch, that's a stitch. So just double count as you go up that you have 35 of those rows. So the next thing we're going to move on to is the setup row at the bottom of page 2. So we're going to slip this back over to the left hand needle, and we're going to knit 3. All right, and again, this is all a little bit fiddly in the beginning. So knit 3, and then we're going to pick up and knit 39 stitches. And do you see how we have the column that's rolled inward, and then we have the middle column that corresponds with this middle stitch, and then we have this column that's kind of rolled to the left underneath. So what we're going to do is pick up and knit the ones that correspond to this first stitch here, which would be like that one, for example. So you just want to follow the column down as best you can. You could use a small crochet hook. That would definitely help. In fact, I might go and get one and do that. So when you're looking for the correct place to pick up your stitches, you want to look, I'm going to go ahead and push this on here so I don't lose it. You're going to want to look kind of underneath here. So here's my first spot right underneath those legs right there. So that's, I'm going to go ahead and use the crochet hook. Why not? Use the tools available. And I want to make sure that my working yarn is coming off the bottom on the right stitch. I got myself a little tangled up here. Okay. So I'm going to go and wrap that crochet hook just as if it were a knitting needle. And I'm going to go ahead and draw that through. And I'm going to do a couple of them and then I'll put them on my needle. But I want you to see where the next stitch is. I go under both of these legs and pick that up. Okay. So do a couple, and then I'm going to just put them, slide them off the back side of my crochet hook right onto my needle. Okay, so we're going to do that all the way down. And if you don't choose to use the crochet hook, now that I can see what's going on, that's okay. I'm just going to go right in underneath both legs of that stitch right there. The crochet hook might be a little bit easier, but it does add an extra step of having to slip things off, back on, and that's all right. So you're going to go right underneath both legs of that next V, sideways, laying that over V. Okay, I hope that's clear. All right, we're just going to continue on all the way down that edge. While you're doing this, you just want to keep in mind which column that you're picking up in, so you don't end up rolling and kind of, exchanging legs here. Like, here's what I've done. You can tell that I did exactly that right there. See that mistake? So I don't know if you can see that. I was picking up my knits and then all of a sudden I have like some kind of wonky leg thing. So I'm going to back that off because obviously I shifted over half a column maybe. So I'm going to roll that back to exactly where I was supposed to be picked up and try again. So just be mindful of that as you're going along, that you're staying on the ridges that you're supposed to stay on. So it's definitely worth taking a quiet moment and doing it properly. All right, I've picked up all my stitches all the way down here. So I should have 36 all together here.
from the 3 that I had, plus all the ones I picked up, and now I have 3 remaining on my provisional cast on for a total of 39 stitches when I'm done. So what I've done here, let's unzip this very carefully. I'm going to keep a hold of this other end if I can. I should have left that tail a little bit longer, huh? All right, you can see where this is going to unzip from right underneath here. So I'm going to try to pick that up right there. And the next one. And I can see how those are going to pop right off. So I'm going to grab those 2 while I can. Whoops. Okay, and then I should have one more. And I'm doing it with my left hand needle so that I can just bend this back around and have it be ready to go. And I should have one more right behind here where my little purple yarn is. So this is super fiddly and awkward, but we'll get it done. Yep, I just felt it. Okay, there should be one more loop back behind here. There it is. All right, so you're going to have to fuss with yours a little bit and then pull off your waste yarn. And then I'm going to knit across those 3. Now, alternatively, I could have done in the beginning, I could have done a long tail cast on and then just simply pick those up across there. But I chose to do the provisional cast on. I just think it's a little neater. So I'm just going to knit right across these. Sorry about out of frame there. And then I should have a total of 39 stitches here. So I'm going to go and recount. And I have a very nice I-cord cast on edge. That looks great. So double count your cast on and your pickups. All right, I'm going to take a moment to switch out my needle tips. I'm using the ChaioGoo interchangeable needles, and the pattern asks me to continue working with the smaller size. So these are 5s. I'm going to switch to 3s, and I determined that when I did my practice swatch, and hopefully you have done that as well, to determine whether you should be using 5s and 3s or 6 and 4s or 7s and 4s, whatever works for you. So take a moment to swap out. If you don't have interchangeable needles and you need to just slip everything onto a different size, then we're going to take a moment to do that. All right, with this particular pattern, the author is having us knit an I-cord on the edge, and it's similarly to how we did the Cozy Winter Shawl. If you followed along with that knit along, if you're curious about that, I'll put a link down below. But what we're going to do is exactly follow along with the pattern on this, where I have to do the setup rows first. So setup DS is dark side light color. So we're going to start off simply knitting 3. That's going to be our I-cord edging. Whoops, and I apparently have some kind of weird loopy thing. That's all right. So that's my I-cord edging right there, okay? Then we're going to begin with our setup row. So first we're going to purl 1. I'm at the top of page 3 of the pattern, by the way. Purl 1. Now we're going to slip 1 yarn over, purl 1. So just like when we do our regular brioche, we're doing this as if this was the quote wrong side or purl side for the light side yarn, for the lighter colored yarn. So slip 1, and then I'm going to purl 1. So slip 1, yarn over, purl 1, and we're going to do that all the way across until we get to the last 3 stitches. I've done the slip yarn over purl sequence all the way across until I'm to the last 3 stitches on my needle, and I've ended with a purl 1. Now we're going to slip 3 stitches with the yarn in front. So leave your yarn in the front and just slip these 3 stitches purlwise onto the right hand needle. Then we're going to leave this right here because we need to bring along our contrasting color now. We're going to slide the cable through, or if you're using longer DPNs, then you can just shuffle everything back over. And we need to introduce now our contrasting color, or color B. In my case, I'm using this really cool multicolored variegated yarn. This is Prairie Spun DK from Brown Sheep Company, and the contrasting colorway is called Earth and Sky. The first one was called Misty Mountain, I believe. So what I want to do now is introduce this darker color. So with color B, I'm going to go ahead and knit 3. So I'm just going to kind of hold this to the back with my left fingers, and I'm just going to go ahead and knit 3. Okay, then I'm going to bring my yarn forward and slip one and do a yarn over right here. When I knit the next stitch, that's going to create that inadvertent yarn over. So I'm going to knit that with the yarn over that is on that purl stitch. So again, we're always slipping what is opposite of what we're holding. So this is clearly a purl stitch and it's opposite color from what I'm holding. So I'm going to bring my yarn forward and I'm going to slip that. Then I'm going to knit this next stitch with its yarn over together. So that's brioche knit or bark. So yarn forward, slip, bark. So yarn forward, slip, brioche knit or bark. Okay, go all the way across that way. All right, at the end of the row, you're going to have your brioche knit or bark, yarn forward or yarn over, slip, and that's how that one ends. Do the yarn over and bring that down in front, and then slip these last 3 stitches because that is your I cord, which we're going to be doing that in conjunction the whole way. Now we have knitted that first row. So again, 1 row of brioche is 2 passes. You have to have both yarns with you. So now we're going to turn our work. All right, we have completed now our setup rows with light color and the dark color. We've completed our setup row. And so now we're going to begin with row 1, light side, light color. So when we say light side, what that's going to mean is that on the lighter side, the lighter colored yarn or whatever you've chosen to be the lighter colored yarn will be the knit columns. That will be the predominant knit columns. And then the other side, you'll have, since brioche is reversible, the dark side will be the knitted columns. So we're just going to follow the directions exactly. With color A, which for me is my turquoise, and I'm just going to make sure that that's coming off the back and nothing's tangled. Get this worked around here. My instructions advise me to knit 3 for my I cord edging. All right, knit 3. Then I'm going to brioche knit this first stitch with its yarn over. I like to just hold down the tail a little bit. So brioche knit, slip 1 yarn over, which on the brioche knit side is yarn forward, slip 1. Bark, forward, slip. Bark, forward, slip. All the way across. You'll get in a nifty little rhythm here. And it might even become Netflix knitting. Until we get to the decreases and the increases. But for now, we're just going to knit through this first section for this time, practicing learning to read our knitting and know what comes next. Okay, at the end, you should have ended with a bark or a brioche knit, and we're going to bring the yarn forward and slip these last 3 stitches for our I cord. Okay. And then I kind of give that tail a little bit of a tug just to keep everything secure. Now, again, we have just done the light side. We have to bring this one along with us. So shuffle everything back to the other end. And we'll do the light side dark color. So the light side dark color is the LSDC with color B. We're going to knit 3. So with the I cord, we knitted on this at the beginning of our row. And then we slip it at the end. So we knit 3, and now we're going to do our brioche purl sequence, which is slip 1, yarn over, brioche purl. Slip 1, yarn over, burp. And I know that I'm slipping these because this is the knit column of the opposite color that I'm holding. So I'm going to slip that, do the yarn over, so it sets up that yarn over for next time for the light color, and then do my burp or brioche purl. Slip 1, yarn over, burp. All right, because this is the dark side row, but I'm using the lighter color, it's going to be the purl sequence. So I'm going to purl 1, slip, yarn over, burp. Slip, yarn over, burp. And I know that that's correct, again, because the dark side is what's making the knit columns, and it's opposite of what I'm holding. So I slip, yarn over, and burp or brioche purl all the way across. Right? Ending with a brioche purl or a burp, and then slip these last 3 with yarn in front. And we don't turn our work yet because we have to bring the darker color yarn along with us. So slide everything back to the beginning. And this is your dark side, dark color. So because it's dark and dark, this is the knit column, or sorry, the knit pass over for this yarn. And you know that because this side is where you can see the knit columns for the yarn that is predominant. So we're going to knit our first 3 I-cord stitches as before. Then yarn forward, slip, brioche knit, yarn forward, slip, bark, forward, slip, all the way across. And we will again be ending with a slip, yarn over. I've just completed the bark and I'm bringing my yarn forward before I slip this stitch, but I need to bring it around again, I think, because of the yarn over that needs to be here before I begin my next knitted round. Because when I turn my work and go back with this lighter colored yarn, the first thing I'm going to do is brioche knit, so I have to brioche knit that with its yarn over. So go ahead and leave that forward, wrap it around the stitch, creating the yarn over that needs to be there, and then slip those remaining I-cord stitches. Now we're going to turn our work, and we have completed our first full sequence. Doesn't that look cool? It's so squishy. Awesome. Okay, we've just completed this section 1, row 1 light side, row 1 dark side, row 2 light side, row 2 dark side. So now we're going to repeat that whole sequence one more time. Do that and show you what it looks like when I'm finished. Okay, after working through that whole sequence one more time, you can really see the pattern starting to emerge. So clearly this is the light side, light color. This is the dominant light side color, and if I turn it over, and this is going to be the dominant dark side color. Now I'm using a variegated yarn on this side, so it might be a little less pronounced, but still you can see which is which as far as the knit columns and the purl columns. So refer back to my earlier video upload about knitting 2-color brioche flat so that you can, if you set your knitting down, you can be able to tell when you come back, you can tell right away where you were by simply realizing the majority of the stitches that are across the top here are the darker color, because you can see there's yarn overs and purls. So I know that I'm going to, and my working yarn is on the right, so I know I'm going to start with a light side because I'm on the light row. So when I go to pick up my yarn, my project here, my working yarn is not on this side, so I know I'm not there. So refer back to the earlier video for more details on that.
Wow. Okay, knitters, that was a lot for our first part of this tutorial. We got down the provisional cast-on, the I-cord, picking up all those I-cord stitches, and then knitting brioche 2 colors back and forth. Well done. All right, work on that over the weekend, and then early next week's video will be carrying on up the scarf and nailing those increases and decreases. So be sure to hit subscribe, click the thumbs up button, and I'll see you next week.